Good evening, Kansas City. This is the Miller Lite NFL Draft Preview here on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook Live page. My name is Stephen St. John, host of the Border Patrol. And Mellinger's up there laughing. You got a new haircut and you're laughing. I don't know what's going on over here.
It takes a lot for me to laugh at somebody else right now, but I can't deal with this, man.
Yeah, the Border Patrol. You're about to rob a bank in 1865.
I'm a bandito, and I'm also trying to practice social distancing. So you guys are very close to me, so I have to wear my mask.
Yeah.
So you got Sam Mellinger. We've got Jeff Chadiha from NFL Network and NFL.com. Well, it's the day we've all been waiting for. Finally, something involving sports that's actually live on TV to talk about. This is all very exciting for everybody. Sam and Jeff, let's get right to it. The Chiefs have number 32 overall because they're the Super Bowl champs, ladies and gentlemen. And so most people expect a corner or a linebacker or maybe interior offensive line. Those are the three needs that most people point to when you look at the Chiefs. But there's a lot of people that think that trading down could be the option here. So let's start with Sam. You tell me, in order, the top three needs for the Chiefs going into this first round, if they do take that pick at number 32 overall.
I think the best thing that they've done so far in this offseason is that they've avoided putting themselves into a corner where they just have to go for a certain position. Re-signing Bashaud Breeland, I think, was huge. I still think they could go corner there, and I think maybe that's what I would that's where I would lean. But I think a corner, you didn't say safety. That's the only other position that I would add. I could see them doing that. I know, Juan Thornhill will be back and Tyrann Mathieu a stud, obviously, but there's a lot of snaps where you have three guys on the field there. So that's another position I could see him doing.
Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with Sam. If I had to pick my top three, I'd go corner, I'd go linebacker, and I would probably go wide receiver. I think interior lineman is a position they've been able to get some quality snaps out of guys who weren't high picks, so I could see them getting somebody lower in the draft who could fit what they need at guard or center. But cornerback's been an issue for this team for the last 3 or 4 years, and they got some solid play last year. But I think a lot of that was scheme and the safeties they had in place, so I'd love to see somebody go there. Linebacker, we know, has been another area of weakness that they can improve upon. And the receiver, to me, makes sense because after this year, it's hard to see Sammy Watkins or Demarcus Robinson, both guys we thought would be gone by now, being a part of this team. So you can pick up a guy, a deep class at that spot, so you can pick up a guy there who could help you down the road.
And Sam, to piggyback on what you said, I like the idea of safety. I was actually responsible for the Chiefs pick in the Golick and Wingo mock draft on ESPN Radio this morning, and I went with a guy that maybe a little bit of a reach there, but I couldn't trade down. I picked Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Minnesota. I like him a lot as just a perfect replacement for Kendall Fuller, and a guy that plays safety, could also play slot corner, is a ball hawk, and if you can keep him healthy, I know he's short, he's 5'9", but my goodness, the production he had, and I had a lot of fun watching that Minnesota team a couple of times this year. I know, Jeff, you watch a lot of Big Ten football, and so you had to be impressed with him. I'm going to throw maybe a couple of names out there of guys that are likely to be there at number 32. And so I'll just start there. That may be a reach. That may be a guy that could trade back and still acquire. But you could see him fitting in very nicely for Kendall Fuller and also giving you some insurance against Juan Thornhill's recovery of the torn ACL that he suffered late in the season. Sam?
I'd love that pick. I mean, honestly, like I was just looking at that. I love the way he plays. He plays with a certain sort of edge, a certain swagger that I think would fit in really well. I like the versatility. You mentioned that he's kind of doing basically what they were asking Kendall Fuller to do toward the end of the season. And I think we all know this, but it's worth underlining a little bit here. They moved Fuller from corner to safety before Juan Thornhill's injury. I just think that that's an important distinction of how they view this defense and what they need. I think Antoine Winfield Jr. would be a terrific pick there. Versatility. You mentioned the ball hawking skills. I mean, I just think that they could get a lot of value there.
Jeff?
To follow up on that, I think you will see even bigger names at safety be there towards the end of the draft. I really feel like with the quarterback situation, with the receiver class, with the defensive tackle position, you're going to see a lot of positions, even corner. There's some really high-level corners who are going to be going pretty high here, you're going to see some big names start dropping at some point. I just think it's going to be hard the way the NFL is today with the wide open offense, the way the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. You're going to see a lot of teams trying to either find guys who can run 4-3 and quarterbacks who can be dynamic, or you're trying to find guys who can stop that. And so I think you're going to see a lot of guys in that spot that you'll like, because not just because of the safety position, but corner, linebacker positions that they really need to fill.
So the linebacker position is also going to be interesting. The two guys that I would like most are likely to be gone, and Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen. Well, I'd like to have Isaiah Simmons most, but he'll be long gone. But Zach Bond out of Wisconsin has been a guy that has been mentioned quite a bit in mock drafts. So really, two-part question: do you think there's a chance that Murray or Queen could be there for the Chiefs? And if not, what about Zach Bond as a prospect?
I love Bond. I think he'd be a really good fit. But I meant to say this in my last answer, but it fits better now. I don't know if this is a connection between, sort of this crazy pandemic thing where everything's being done on Zoom or whatever. But Brett Veach mentioned this last week, and I've heard a couple other NFL people say something similar, that this year more than most, the mock drafts that are out there are not close to what a lot of teams have internally. So I think what you see and what we think of guys falling or whatever may just be guys that this is where the teams had them all along. I think that's something to keep in mind. There's going to be a lot of surprises, and I'm not even talking about like the technological stuff that may go wrong.
Yeah, it's a valid point, and because you think about the time that's spent at this time of year doing one-on-one visits, having guys into the facility, being able to work people out, being able to do medical checks. I mean, that's going to weigh heavily on how teams look at who they want to take in these positions, because you can't be as risky as you would like to be with some of these players. So I think you're going to see more guys who are taken who seem like sure picks, less gambles, just because of what Sam just said. I think there's going to be a lot more concern about getting you're thinking you're getting a diamond and you're getting a dud.
Do you think that Queen or Murray would have any chance at falling close to the Chiefs?
I think it'd be tough. I think Bond makes the most sense because he's the least regarded of the three. He's a solid player, and I've watched him in the Big Ten, and he certainly is a quality player. But Queen and Murray, everything I've heard and seen, those are the guys who've been touted the most. Those are the guys who are the most athletic, the most dynamic playmakers of that position, so they will be gone. But again, I think for me, you throwing out names, I think even at corner, if you've got an A.J. Terrell there from Clemson, Jalen Johnson's a name that's been thrown around, Trayvon Diggs, a kid from Alabama. Again, bigger names, but maybe if they fall to you, I don't know how you can pass them up, because for this team especially, and I know that it's still, even in the midst of COVID-19 and the era we're living in now, it's still a lot of good buys from what happened last year. I think this is a really pivotal draft for them as far as building for the future. And I think they have to get playmakers on that side of the football and not just be enamored by if DeAndre Swift is there, or if make for Henry Rugg, which is rumored earlier this week. I think they have to really make a defensive splash.
Okay, so while we're on linebackers, even though there's a debate on what he should be listed as, I want to talk about Isaiah Simmons because he's a local product of Olathe North, and the kid was one of the best players in college football the last couple of years. And he's kind of all over the top 10. But boy, it's been interesting to see all these people talk about now all of a sudden, well, where would he fit? How does he fit in the NFL? My God, if you watched him in college and you can't figure out a way to use him on your defense, then what the hell are we doing here? I mean, I feel like we overthink things sometimes. And this kid, I mean, especially with how the quarterback position has evolved and the run option, and so many athletic quarterbacks, they have a weapon like that doesn't ever have to leave the field, for your defense. I'd like to hear each of you guys, Sam and then Jeff, what do you think of Isaiah Simmons as a prospect and how he fits into the NFL?
Dude, I adore him. And this is probably me admitting that I'm not very good at my job, because I remember watching Clemson maybe the first time I saw them in the last couple of years and say, who the hell is that guy? Googling him and saying, Olathe North. I feel like I should have known that. I don't know, what scheme would he not fit, right? Like what can he do or what's required of someone that he doesn't have. Of everybody in this draft, and I'm getting a little bit out on my skis over. Let me rephrase it. It is hard to imagine him not being a really good player. He may not be, a 5-time first team All-Pro or whatever, but it's just hard to imagine him not being a very good player. And he's got that ceiling, I think, of being one of the best defensive. He's the kind of guy that you could imagine without much stretch of being the defensive rookie of the year, being a defensive player of the year down the road. And it's just, to me, there's just not a lot of bust risk on that. Like, I don't understand what is in him that would scare anybody off.
Yeah, and for me, he reminds me a lot of Brian Urlacher, who he was one of the first guys I covered when I got into covering the National Football League coming out of the draft. And he was a guy who'd been a high school safety who grew into a linebacker in college who was really quick, really dynamic. And you saw what happened with his career. He became a Hall of Famer with the Bears. But interesting enough, he started off playing outside. And they moved him inside, and I think in his first rookie minicamp, and said, "You're going to be our middle linebacker." And so I think that's the only question about Isaiah Simmons that you just mentioned, Stephen, is with the right coaching staff that knows how to take advantage of all his talents. For me, he is the perfect example of a modern defender, a kid who's going to have to be versatile and dynamic, maybe not the mold, the size of a traditional linebacker that we knew back 10 years ago, but the game's played in space now. And if you have a guy like that who can cover people and blitz and play the run, to me, he's a bigger Tyrann Mathieu. That's what he is to me. And he's a guy that if he gets with the right team, is going to be a star.
Yeah, I saw Ian Rappaport on the NFL Network today asking the question, well, is he a safety? Does he play in the middle? Is he outside? Is he an edge rusher? And the answer is yes. And you said so. He's all of those things, and that makes him what a great weapon for the defense. Okay, so let's you mentioned some of those corners, Jeff. Jalen Johnson, a lot of mock drafts have him available, 32 out of Utah, but he's had 3 shoulder surgeries, so there's medical issues there. Jeff Gladney out of TCU has been a popular pick in mock drafts, and it feels like he's going to go right around, 29, 30, 31, could be there for the Chiefs. And you mentioned some of the other guys like Trevon Diggs who may not be there. Corner, I know early on, Sam, and maybe you still are, you were pretty certain that the Chiefs should go corner in the first round. Do you still feel that way? And who do you think might be available? Is there a guy that you like above the others who could be available at 32? And then, Jeff, you can answer the same question as well.
Yeah, I'm a little less sure than I was. For most of this offseason, I was under the assumption that Bashaud Breeland would be somewhere else. I thought he'd get paid by somebody. I did not expect him to be back on another prove-it deal. So even that being said, I still think corner is an important position for them. I don't feel, and I guess this is what I was getting at in the first answer, is that they work this offseason in a way that they don't have to feel cornered. Pardon the pun. They don't have to feel forced into taking a certain position. But part of it too is that I think the way that a lot of people expect anyway, the board to break down, is there's going to be a lot of corners in that spot. And whether that's, AJ Terrell, maybe he's going to be gone by then, or Jeff Gladney, you just mentioned. And Jalen Johnson, you mentioned the surgeries. I really like him as a player. There's complications obviously in getting the medicals, during this time. But if they think he's healthy, if they think the shoulder can hold up, I think he's a really good player and a good fit for them too. He's big, he's physical, he's not real fast, but I think they have some cover with their safeties. So I think he could be a good fit for the Chiefs as well.
Yeah, this is the team that I don't think it's as much of a gamble to take as a corner at that spot, depending on medicals or how he developed as a college player. Because the way they scheme things up, you're going to play well in this scheme. You saw what Bashaud Breeland did in this system. You saw what Charvarius Ward has done in this system. I think that if anything, you make sure you get a guy who can be productive for you over the next 4 or 5 years. Because once Breeland's gone, once you're relying on guys who are playing on improvement deals, you're going to have people you trust back there. At some point, Tyrann Mathieu is going to be gone. At some point, they got to decide what they're going to do with Charvarius Ward. And I don't know, with the money they're talking about having to pay a Patrick Mahomes, who else? After next year, they're going to have a lot of guys they got to start dealing with as far as contracts. I don't know if Charvarius Ward survives going forward. So they're going to have to start finding young guys they can play there and rely upon, because as much as they've been able to really hurt teams with their passing game over the last couple of years, they can't get corner figured out. They're going to see the opposite of that happening to them in the coming years.
All right, now the other position that could be addressed, and I'll never complain about getting protection for Patrick Mahomes, a very popular pick in many mock drafts. And here we go, Jeff Wheelhouse. Jeff's going to go first on this one. Cesar Ruiz, the interior offensive lineman, center, and guard out of Michigan. And look, in past years, I'm sure Chiefs fans, including myself, we might turn our nose up at an interior offensive lineman in the first round and yawn. I will never complain about protecting the franchise. And so if they did go in that direction, what would you think of Ruiz as the number 32 overall pick if that happened, Jeff?
Hail Cesar Ruiz.
Yes.
I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think of all the guys who might be there, he would be a really positive pick for them because I think he's a really good college player. A lot of people had him going. I think it's a lot of mocks had him going to the Patriots. I think so. He's the guy that you see being in that 21 to 32 category. Came in and started as a freshman. Was an all-world player coming out of high school, lived up to the hype. And again, I understand the pick if they make it because the interior of their line was probably one of their biggest weaknesses last year. But I also feel like they've been able to survive with that, and they've been able to thrive, and they won a championship with those guys being able to. They had 4 or 5 different guys playing inside this year because of injury or whatever happened, or just not. And most of the guys didn't play that great over the long haul, but they patched it together. And so I think that, again, I prefer a defensive pick, but if you're taking a guy, a lineman, Ruiz is fine with me.
Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly am going to underline everything that Jeff just said. I think the issue for me, and this is a little bit different because the Chiefs, according to Herbie Teope reported, they went after the Saints, Andrews Pete, right? That they offered him what you would have to assume was a big contract. But other than that, the Chiefs have been reluctant to give up a lot of resources, either in the draft, other than Mitch Morse a few years back. They don't tend to give big contracts to use high picks at that position. So that's a little bit why I'm hesitant to think that it'll be Ruiz. But if they did, I mean, how could you not understand the logic? Like you said, Stephen, I mean, if the justification on anything they do is it benefits Patrick Mahomes, that's a pretty good justification.
All right. Hey. And that could happen. We'll see. That's a guy that, like I said, has gone to the Chiefs in a lot of mock drafts and could be available at number 32. Now, staying with the offensive line, LDT has restructured his deal. And so he was a candidate to be cut, and it could create money against the cap, some room against the cap. But he restructures. Did they do this just to be able to comfortably sign the draft class and just to be able to create that room, or is there another shoe that's going to drop? Did he create some room maybe to make a move or do something? There's still veterans out there that haven't signed. We've seen that with past NFL champions, that how many times with the Patriots, even the Broncos, we'd see some pretty damn good veterans sign for a ridiculous one-year deal. We're like, now how in the hell did everyone let that happen? That's what people are going to be doing around the NFL when that happens with the Chiefs. Is there another move here, or maybe a trade? I don't know. Does that lead up to something, or are they just making room to sign their draft class? Sam and then Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, they don't do it for no reason. Right. You don't just do that because you feel like it. I do think that what I don't know is, and maybe this is exactly your question, if there's an exact move, if there's a deliberate, we want this guy after the draft if he's still available kind of thing, or if it's just, you get into the summer and prices start dropping. I think that's what happened with Breland. I think, he entered the offseason hoping to get paid, hoping to get sort of generational wealth, something like 8-10 million a year, something like that. And if you wait and the market doesn't come to you, your price goes down. I think that's what they're doing, just creating some flexibility. I mean, their cap has been laughably small at times. The $177 total before they redid. Was that when they redid Frank Clark? I think you got to have some room.
Yeah, I'm with Sam here. I think it's more about having flexibility, being able to make a move. I'm still trying to figure out this roster the finances of it going forward, because at some point the big shoe to drop has to be Patrick Mahomes' contract. And I don't know how you marry that with whatever they're trying to do with Chris Jones long term. I just don't know how that works mathematically, and certainly with the draft situation, you have to figure out how to sign your draft picks. So I don't think there's some big master play here for anybody outside of those names involved, the draft picks or Mahomes or Chris Jones. I think, to be honest with you, I think it's more about just having money to sign the draft picks.
We've got a few more questions I'm going to throw at you guys, but I want to thank Miller Lite. It's the Miller Lite draft preview here on Sports Radio 810 Facebook Live. And Miller Lite, you're not just drinking a great tasting light beer, you're having yourself some Miller time. Celebrate responsibly, just like me. That's product placement, ladies and gentlemen. Right
there we go.
Live. Okay, so let's Chris Jones. Chris Jones has been the big topic all off season. Are we going to be blindsided by some Chris Jones news tonight? Is that beyond the realm of possibility? Or should we go ahead? And I've been trying to get comfortable with him and say, okay, he's going to be on the team next year. I just don't want to buy into that and then have the rug pulled out from under me. So what about Chris Jones? I saw a couple of people. Gil Brandt mentioned it in his tweet. Daniel Jeremiah mentioned it in his mock draft that Chris Jones could still be moved. Where are we at in the Chris Jones saga, Sam and Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if they moved him. I don't think anybody should be shocked if they moved him. I do believe this. I don't think they want to, and I was going to say they can't, but of course they can. But I think they are going to work really hard to make sure that he's not playing with them in 2020 on that tag. If he's playing with them and he's a great player, there's every reason to want him on the team. Not just a great player, but a great pro. The way he handled his contract last year, that whole thing, he did that. That was a 10 out of 10 on him. But you can free up. We were just talking about cap space. They could free up $7-8 million, something like that, just by giving him a deal and doing it. So I think that's another element to this cap, to everything else that we're talking about. But if they don't trade him today, I think that's an indication they think they can get a long-term deal done.
Yeah, I'm probably more skeptical of him being here. I feel like the DeForest Buckner trade with Indianapolis really set the market at a place where I don't know how the Chiefs can really match that. Again, for me, it's not just – I think in a perfect world, Chris Jones gets paid and he stays a Chief. But when you're talking about having to pay the quarterback long term, at some point, I think that when we have this conversation about Chris Jones, it always feels like it's two separate conversations. There's Chris Jones here and there's Patrick Mahomes here. And in reality, they affect one another, because past this year, it's hard to imagine a deal that would benefit Chris Jones that would be in that $20 million, $21 million a year average salary range that could also allow for Patrick Mahomes and keeping everybody else they have. At some point, somebody's got to leave. Like, everybody can't be here. And I think the market forces have worked to their advantage, because Sammy Watkins being able to come back on the deal he got, Bashaud Breeland coming back on the deal they got, the market wasn't kind to them. But I think at some point you have to, Brett Veach and Andy Reid have to really think about long and hard about, do we want to have two defensive linemen getting paid that kind of money and still have the kind of offense we want to have? I just don't know if it's doable.
Okay, you mentioned paying the quarterbacks. There's several teams that hope they'll be paying their quarterbacks huge franchise amounts of money in 4 or 5 years. That means they got to pick right tonight. There's going to be a lot of quarterbacks going to the first round. Burrow first overall. Does everyone like Tua over Herbert, or is there anyone here that likes Herbert over Tua? Because that's the big debate right now.
I'm team Tua.
Yeah, I mean, I would think Tua is obviously the better talent. It's just a question of the medicals.
Would you be scared off by his medicals enough to take Herbert if you needed a quarterback, Jeff?
I would. Yeah, I would definitely be, because the only real knock on him coming out of school was that he's small. And look, Russell Wilson can survive in the NFL because he can move around pretty well. Tua is not that kind of an athlete. Drew Brees can survive at that height in the NFL because he got with Sean Payton after 4 or 5 years with the Chargers and was able to become a superstar. Now, if Tua gets stuck on a team with a bad offensive line or suspect receivers, I worry about how well of a career he's going to have, how good of a career he's going to have. If he gets with a team like the Chargers, we talked about this on the radio show earlier this week, where you got a lot of studs, a good supporting cast, he can sit for a while, get healthy. That's the best case scenario for him. But again, you're hearing all these rumblings about the Lions wanting to make a trade at 3. What happens if Bill Belichick goes up there and gets his buddy Nick Saban's favorite quarterback and makes a move there? That would be interesting. But again, if I was a GM, put my life on it, and I'd have a great team to put Tua on next year, I'd take Justin Herbert.
Sam?
I just think you need to go with the quarterback that you think is the best. And this is me talking. It's a lot easier for me to say this when my job's not on the line for it. But I'm willing to take a little bit of a risk in a quarterback just because I think if you hit, the payoff is so enormous because of everything that position means. And look, we've just talked about this, but the medicals are a little bit murky during these strange times. But I just look like all the reports so far from the doctors that he's worked with are glowing. That I can't get out of my head how well he throws the deep ball. Like, I know that's like sort of like eye candy or whatever, but he is so damn accurate. The ball is always just right there on his receiver's hands. I would take a chance on him for sure.
All right. Do you think the Raiders will draft a quarterback? Sam?
You're asking me to predict what the Raiders are going to do. No idea.
In the first round.
Look, like we just been talking about how the Chiefs can go anywhere. The Raiders can go anywhere for many different reasons. It seems to me that the pieces are in place for them to try and take a quarterback. It sure doesn't seem like Gruden is, head over heels with his guy. And it's hard for me. And look, like I'm biased because I see him play against the Chiefs and he usually stinks against the Chiefs. But it's hard to see how you can look at Carr and think like that's our future. That's the guy that we're going to try and win a Super Bowl with.
Jeff, do the Chargers take a quarterback tonight?
Yes. I don't think they take one if Herbert or Tua are gone. And so that's the only way I don't see it happening. They're not going to force it, but I certainly feel like let me rephrase that. In the first round, they don't see what they like there. They may drop to the second round, take one. But I definitely feel like this is the time in this division with the quarterback the Chiefs have in play. You better have somebody you like as a young talent who can keep up with Patrick Mahomes for the next 10 years. And I think Tua can be that kind of player. I think Herbert, if he's developed right, can be that kind of player. But you don't want to be sitting there trying to, play keep up with the Chiefs if you don't have somebody under center who you like.
You said the Patriots moving up for Tua. We hope that didn't happen. Do either of you think that Patriots are going to draft a quarterback tonight, or are they just going to go with what they got and maybe hook up with Cam Newton later?
It's hard to find. They trading up to get one of the top tier guys that we're talking about. Even if you throw in Love in this conversation, I mean, it's a lot of capital that they'd have to give up to do that. I don't know if that can happen.
Jeff?
I think they'll take a quarterback at some point. They've been a lot of nice things said about Jarrett Stidham, but I don't hear anybody saying he's going to be their starter next year. And Brian Hoyer is the other option right now. So unless they're going to swing that trade for Andy Dalton or go sign Cam Newton or Jameis Winston, I would think that they have to look at this class. Again, a lot of interesting prospects beyond just the top 3 or 4 guys. I think it's worth it for them to take somebody, if not the first round trade, if somebody drops to them, or in the second round.
All right, last question for you. I know it's very difficult to make this prediction based on the fact that nobody has made a pick yet, but what's your gut tell you? If you had to tell me who the Chiefs come away with tonight, is there a name that keeps popping in your head, or maybe just what you best case scenario, what we think happens? Any way you want to deliver it, make a prediction for the Chiefs tonight. Sam and then Jeff.
Look, man, I promise I'm not saying this just because you were talking about how you took him on your mock draft this morning. And I actually don't think that Antoine Winfield Jr. would be a reach. I just think he fits. I like, again, the swagger, everything that he plays with. I like that. I like that pick a lot. I really do.
Jeff?
I'm going to go A.J. Terrell, Clemson. falling to them. I'll take that move. Hey, you asked me for something, man. Well, I'll give it to you. Spice up your Miller Lite Zoom conference. I think if that position, the best value is going to be a corner. I think they can find linebackers later. I think they can find linemen later, but I think corner is always going to be a tough spot to fill in the NFL. And if they're able to really find somebody they like at that spot, Terrell's there. To me, it's a win-win.
Should we just get trading up out of our minds? That's what Beach likes to do. Everyone talks about trading down. You think there's any chance he trades up?
There's a chance with that guy. Yeah, there's a chance. But with, they've only got the 5 picks. And if you've got 32, what you need to package with 32 to move up to 15 or 20 or whatever you want to talk about, it's a big price.
Yeah, you don't want to be giving away future draft capital at this stage. You've got a championship. Yeah. You're positioned well for a really long run as a contender for another championship or 2. So, my God, it's like you don't forget that first draft wasn't like he didn't kill it. That first draft they had. So you gotta be winning some drafts here, some draft classes in the coming future. So you got to start here and keeping 5 picks and maybe adding 1 or 2 more by trading back isn't a bad idea for him.
This has been the Miller Lite NFL Draft Preview. And once again, thank you to Miller Lite. You're not just drinking a great tasting light beer, you're having yourself some Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Man, it's good to see you guys. I see Sam's new hairstyle. I know, Jeff, you got the same one. You've been maintaining that.
The same one. Yeah.
There's a chia pet going on.
You got a mullet under there.
Keep taking it off just for a second.
Oh, I don't know if you want to see. I haven't tried to grow hair in 50. Really, for you, I would, but I don't know. I can show you. I mean, there's some. There's
okay.
Not much.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean,
there's some survivors in there.
Right. I need to get that spray or something. I don't know. Things are happening. I haven't had in a decade and a half, so I don't know what it is. But I'm using shampoo. It's been a great walk down memory lane. Thank you, Sam Mellinger, for the time. Thank you, Jeff Chadiha. And remember, celebrate responsibly. Let's go, Chiefs.
There we go. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Yeah,
all right, take care. Go, Chiefs.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Allie.
Thanks, Allie.
Thanks, Allie.
Bye.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem, man. Take care.